Hello everyone, this is Yosha, and I'm finally back with a new video guide on the new boss, DarkFalz Dalion. And with this new quest comes with mechanics that actually forces your team to be well coordinated and provides a fun way to form strategies for your team. There's many ways to handle this, but I'm hoping this guide helps newcomers have a better perspective on how to handle this quest and provide a smooth clear. So let's discuss the quest, and which is set for a time limit of 15 minutes. As for requirements, you're going to need a BP requirement of 40-50 to enter, which is already pretty high. Please don't use Arganti gear for Phase 1 and Phase 2. It's level 65 gear, and it's already outdated. You won't get enough potency out of it to make it worth it. If you really need some better gear, you can farm some decent gear from Lucille Exploration and build your Inyo armor and Exover weapon with LZ augments. I also highly recommend checking your buffs before entering. Make sure you're using a meat-based food buff. Use the mag in North Kavaris for extra attack potency, and also buff up on HP, PP, potency, and rare drop rate from your alliance mag. So my team managed to beat this with, at least with me, 7800 DPS on Phase 1 and 2, without Blight. And I had about around 9700 to 10,000 DPS with Blight. I don't think I have enough data to provide you a minimum potency or DPS for this fight, so you'll have to figure that out on your own. My best advice is to try to focus on increasing your potency if you fail multiple times. Fortunately, half of the entire fight doesn't require high potency or good augments. That's because in Phase 3, you'll be forced to use a cannon, which I'll be explaining how to proceed later in the video. For now, I highly recommend you build a second set of gear that will put your damage variance, which should be around 77% floor potency. This is because the cannon outputs damage based on your weapon's base attack and damage variance. Best bet is to build some orange Enia armors plus 61, and then a Exover weapon plus 80, and affix them with floor potency augments. Now for your party, and it's much easier to go with 3 DPS classes and 1 ranger. And if you do have a ranger in your party, then you'll want to have all DPS classes to spec ranger as their subclasses. You may ask, why? Doesn't Ranger only provide resistance towards ailments? And yeah, you would be right. But since Ranger also has another skill, it's called Benefit from Blight skill. May not be worded that way, I don't remember. But if you at least spec this all the way to 3 out of 3, you will receive a 15% boost towards your potency as long as there's a Blight on the boss. And since the fragments you will fight are the boss himself, the boost will work for the whole party. Now that your gear and party is set, it's time to start the quest. The quest will begin with the intro of the boss, Dalion, and 2 of its fragments. They'll appear on the left and right sides in front of you. Both fragments have a crown over their head, and the left fragment is always ice, while the right fragment is fire. Before we get into formations, please make sure to remain within the black ring that appears around the 2 fragments. If you don't have one player within that circle fragment, it will start randomly shooting a projectile bomb that on contact causes an AoE blast. With that knowledge now setting into your head, it's time to set up formations. Into teams of 2 for each fragment, or a team of 3 focused on one fragment, while one person handles the other fragment. Both options are fine plans, just make sure you check in with your team to see how they would like to proceed. While in combat with fragments, you'll need to watch out not only for their attacks, but portals and falling cubes until all fragments are gone. Once you get rid of the 2 fragments, you will transition to Phase 2. The boss will spawn several puddles, and you can evade or weapon action these. Just watch out for the windows being very tight. If you're not confident enough to time it, then just stick to the gaps that have no puddles. The boss will perform this twice and finish with 4 of them on each corner. Once these puddles explode, you will enter Phase 2. For Phase 2, 4 fragments will spawn on each corner of the field. You'll have the original ice and fire in the front, and then lightning and wind in the back. Also remember, these fragments will have black rings surrounding them, so at least one player must be at each fragment to prevent anyone from getting blasted from behind. So make sure you pick an element you'll like to focus on and stick with it, because the boss will interrupt your fight and force you to run away for a moment, and you will need to keep track of where your fragment will be. The fragments will attack the same way as before with the occasional drop of an elemental attack. The timing to dodge is different for each element, so be very careful. Ice would be the easiest fragment to fight, as he only shoots ice projectiles. Fire drops a timed fireball that explodes. Wind creates wind traps that trigger when touched. Lightning spreads random spots that will be struck with lightning. You will still need to look out for falling cubes and portal attacks while dealing with each fragment. Watch out for a new attack where the fragment will spin. You can weapon action it and counter this attack as much as you like until the fragment stops spinning. The fragment will also sometimes throw out an orange puddle. It will fly back and have a shield, and you can't hurt it with range attacks, and you can't weapon action or dodge this. My advice is to run out of it as soon as you see the fragment fly back and place the puddle. Be very careful during phase 2 when using skills that lock you in an animation. You can't cancel because this attack can come out at random, and I've been killed many times using my Pinion Blade skill, or left with not enough time after using it to run out of the puddle. Finally, you will be interrupted mid-fight by the boss. The fragments will spin away from the field, and the boss will randomly choose a side and place a massive orange puddle that covers half the field. You really don't want to be hit by this, so we'll just run out of there unless you got the resistance and HP to tank it. Dalion will go to the next side and do another puddle swipe attack. After that, if you're keeping track of where your chosen fragment is, you can run back to it and continue attacking it as they will appear back after the final puddle attack is over. This cycle of attacks will repeat until all 4 fragments are finally dead. Then comes phase 3 where your potency doesn't matter. It's now time for your floor potency gear to shine. The transition to third phase should give you enough time to quickly change your armor and weapons over before you need to start moving. You will be greeted with 4 fragments across the other side of the field with the boss behind them. Your job is to locate the core behind the shields of these fragments and maintain shooting while dodging all attacks coming towards you. Your team should state which lane you would like to focus on to increase efficiency for this phase. During this phase, a fragment will spawn in the middle of the stage and shoot cubes at you. 2 of the 4 players should stay near where it spawns as much as possible and use the laser sword to attack it. Killing it gives you a stock for bomb projectiles, which can be used to shatter the shields on the fragments covering their core. And there's no limit to how many bombs you can have stocked. Shooting the correct shield with the bomb will reveal where the hidden core is located, even if the shield isn't broken from it. If a player happens to shoot a shield and reveal the core before you can shoot the shield in your lane, just hold on to it for later. I recommend your team pick a lane they would like to focus on, so once you have your stock, each of you shoots 1 fragment per lane, revealing the core quickly, and start firing continuously without stopping. Don't try to stop shooting to dodge or anything like that, because you will lose out on damage. The longer you fire, the more damage increases until it maxes out. The only time a player should stop shooting is if they need to cut down that fragment that spawns in the middle for the bomb stock, or if the fragments are near you at any time, or if the boss himself is downed. I also recommend not trying to dodge because you can avoid all attacks the boss throws at you by just walking. The time is a bit tight, but it's not impossible. Now, let's take a look at what those attacks will look like. Let's start with the cube projectiles. Fragments will randomly target players once it fires, and will be launched towards the last location that player was. This gives you a chance to kind of control where the cube will fly at. Just avoid the cubes and prevent them from mistakenly hitting others. Cube and beam phase. 2 fragments will be firing cubes just like before, while another 2 will fire a timed beam. If you're in the zone of the beam, you have enough time to just walk right out of it before it fires. The wall. You want to avoid the wall no matter the reason. The wall can kill you, and if it doesn't, it will still stagger you, which stops you from shooting your cannon. You can avoid the wall by just hopping twice right over it. Dash attack. The 4 fragments will take turns starting an animation to dash and hit you. The best spot to be is in between 2 of the fragments, so they'll completely miss you as you fire. As the fragments finish their attack, you have a small window to attack the fragment's core with your laser blade. At some point in the fight, you will down Dalion, which gives you a chance to dash towards him and unleash your laser blades. Be warned, during this phase, projectiles will be randomly fired in front of him, so try not getting hit. Once you're within hitting range with your laser blade, the projectiles can't hit you. Placed orb bombs. Purple orb puddles will spawn right under you and explode. Since the orbs stay where you last were, if you're constantly moving, you can just walk out of this, or double jump above its range to avoid it. 3-layer erupting floor. The floor will have 3 puddle layers that will erupt from the first layer down to the 3rd layer. Just hang back on the 3rd layer while barely touching the border of the 2nd layer and wait until the 2nd layer erupts. Once it erupts, just walk out of the 3rd layer. 4-lane blast. The fragments will take turns charging and firing a laser. Just wait for the lane next to you to fire and immediately walk into it to avoid the laser on your lane from hitting you. Plasma floor. Above 70% of the floor is covered by a purple puddle. Avoid this by walking back until you exit out of the puddle. If you're too far in or busy trying to kill the fragment in the middle for a bomb stock, then use your dash to get out of there. Break. The boss will break, giving you a free moment to deal as much damage as possible. Dash over to the boss and whack him with laser swords. If you're feeling adventurous, I'd keep track of the break gauge and try to get close to the boss right before it breaks to save time from needing to dash over there and hit him with a few extra slashes. After Dalion breaks, some of his attacks will become more intense. For example, the wall attack will have 2 walls. The orb puddles will happen twice in a row. The 3-layer puddle will become a little faster, just make sure you aren't hanging all the way in the back of the field. And if there's any difference in the other attacks, then I didn't notice, but they seem pretty easy to avoid, so that's probably why I didn't notice. Once Dalion is about 20% HP, you will enter the final phase. Dalion will be free to attack, but you will lose your cannon, so quickly switch over your gear to your original high potency gear and start attacking him. Dalion will slam the floor twice, followed by a delayed slam. He'll then sprinkle some cubes, and finally end it with a left swipe. This attack sequence will repeat until you completely down him. Also, don't be fooled by his physical down. Although it can cancel an attack animation, the boss will still be able to attack you. Once you finally bring him down to 10%, he will stop attacking and you're free to DPS him without a care in the world. After you spend about a little over a minute, you should be able to finish off DarkFalz Dalion, and congratulations. You get your win screen and followed by rewards. Now the rewards for this battle are pretty much everything you can earn in Seal, and the chance to receive a Wingguard weapon, which is according to the devs, is intended to drop at the same rate as Flugelguard was for Solus. Are the rewards worth the fight? I'm not sure, that really just depends on each person, but I do know that this fight has been one of the most interesting fights just because it forced players to come up with strategies and find ways to make it easier or quicker. I have to thank everyone who joined me in for each run that was recorded for this video, and I appreciate all your help. Now that we've watched this video, I would love to see some comments, tips, and methods you guys tried that helped your run that wasn't listed on here. Having all that feedback can help the community overall. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you all have a good one.